storytelling isn't just storytelling. In first place, it's understanding your audience. Now, there are hundreds of videos already about storytelling, and they all explain what works for them. The bad thing is, how can you apply this knowledge for your video, for your audience, for your story? Well, in this video, we will talk about how you can create your own framework. But let's start from the beginning. While you can develop your own unique style and think that's the way to go, there is actually a way better approach here.
Hoarders collect indiscriminately, and the artist collects selectively.
And that's stealing from the best.
They only collect the things that they really love. An artist's job is to collect ideas.
At first, I started by, I guess you can say, stealing like an artist, because that's how, to me, I believe that's how you learn.
And no, I don't mean stealing by copying them. It's more understanding their framework and understanding why we think they are successful. Step 1 is gathering videos of examples you love.
A strategy, a technique is like, what would it sound like if this YouTuber made this video? And then I would make a bunch of hooks depending on that.
But don't just watch them, study them, break them down into pieces you can learn from. And while we could talk, of course, about every segment, every category, we will use one example here. Before we start building our systems, let's talk first about tools, because we will jump a lot between tools. Now, the problem is there is no best tool out there. Most people just one or two tools. In today's video, we will use the most popular tools with their strengths so that we can really maximize everything. Now, the issue is every day a new model comes, and every day the new model is better than the old model. So currently, for us at least, Claude Opus 4.5 is the model to go for most use cases. But let's talk about the other popular models, because we will use Perplexity, Gemini, GPT, Claude, and NotebookLM. Because every model, every provider has their strength. Every tool has deep research. But what I found is that for discovery and research, Perplexity is actually the most convenient tool. Now, Gemini is also amazing because it has a very good deep research mode. And not only that, for YouTube, it can actually handle transcript quite well, better than the other models. So for research, Gemini and Perplexity are great. But when it comes to building a project, we have to switch to Claude or GPT. Both of those tools also have deep research. If I would choose just one model, I would go all in with Claude. But most people already have GPT. Now, what makes those two special is they can think good. They allow us to create projects. NotebookLM could be treated like our own personal assistant. NotebookLM is exceptional when it comes to asking specific questions on our documents with timestamps. Let's clarify this one more time. I'm not talking about how you can build the best possible storyline. We will talk about how you can build your own framework. And we have to start with the pattern. Now we can develop our own pattern, but that would take us a lot of time. Instead, I would ask AI for help. And this is how I would do it. Go to the channel you like, the channel that is closest to what you want to archive. So in our use case, we are using Fern. Now there are plenty of plugins you can use to get your transcript. We have built our own tool here because this allows us to get transcripts also with timestamps in specific formats. So here we can download the TXT file with timestamps or a PDF. This will be super helpful to understand and build our patterns. Let's download it with timestamps here. Now do it with 3 to 5 videos of the preferred channel. And again, we can download it. This tool will be in the description, so you can use it. It's completely for free. But as mentioned, there are other tools out there. For example, Glasp. You can also get this Chrome extension where you can copy the full transcript. This is also for free. But we prefer the other tool because it allows us to get ready to use documents. Now all you need to do is upload your documents and ask ChatGPT to break down all those documents in a structure for you. This is very important for pattern recognition, and AI is incredible in helping you with this. Because if AI is good at something, it's basically recognizing patterns. I have tested this with a lot of different models, and for me, Opus 4.5 really did the best pattern recognition here. But what I'm most interested in is not a detailed list, because that's what every AI is providing if we are not specific enough, because it's now writing a really long, detailed analyst. But that's okay, because that's a starting point. On the next step, we want to reduce it, because that's all we need. So in our example here, this is what Claude came up with. This is very good because this provides us a high-level overview of the structure. Keep in mind, this is the first step. It will improve over time, and we will not just copy it one by one, but we will create our own version based out of this pattern. As we can see, everything is very clear, organized in a timeline structure, which allows us almost to visualize it also as an editor, what's happening at what moment. This is also very important if we want to build our system prompt in the next step. The next thing, which is also important, is to break it down at a higher level, because that is a constant reminder for us here. This structure really allows us to understand everything without going into the details. So, for example, if we work with a team, with a scriptwriter or with an editor or whoever is helping us, this is the first thing I would show them, because this explains everything important needed. Okay, for our next step, we need to copy this pattern, this timeline, and we are jumping between tools. I just want to show that you can do this with ChatGPT or Gemini. So now we want GPT to write the system prompt for us. We are asking it to write the system prompt for us, but also specifying the outcome we would like to have. So in our case, we want a clean voiceover, the full script with sources, interviews, and B-roll. Everything. And it should ask us also what option we prefer. Then we also paste in the entire outline here. This is very important. Even though we are adding this as a single source, we ask it to implement this in our system prompt. Now, this is what it came up with, a very extensive system prompt. As we can see, this is a very extensive system prompt, and it implemented our pattern here. This is very important. This is not our final pattern. We will improve it over time. Now we want to copy the whole system prompt. Copy it, and we can stick inside of GPT and build our own project. So here inside, we can create our project and call it first project. But I really believe Claude has the best project mode. If I would choose one provider, it would be Claude. Here we can give it a project name, call it first project, and create our project. Now we can include instructions. This is where we can paste our system prompts. So here inside, we can input the very long system prompt. You could also create your project inside of GPT. Now we save the instructions, and now what we want to upload are existing files. Here is what I would do. First, I would upload those existing transcripts. Then I would upload the pattern. We can also upload the content itself. Here we can name it however we like. For example, in our case, script timeline. That can be used as a reference. Even though it's in our system prompt, if we add this as an additional resource, it's a reminder to stick to this pattern. Now, this is very important to understand. We do not want to keep those transcripts here. Those are the starting point. And once we develop our first script, we will delete them. Why? Because we want to have our own style. But this system here brings us already 80%, 90% to where we want to be. It's not about stealing their exact style or copying their exact style, but it's kind of like a speed adjustment. It brings us very fast somewhere, but we have to iterate. We have to adjust it to our own style. Once we have our first script and once we have used this first project here, which we will discuss later, we then have to iterate and adjust our prompt and the timeline. This is very important because the more we add, the more we refine, the better the project gets. This is absolutely important here. We have to delete those files and replace them with our own voiceover. We have to adjust our timeline with what we find. Let's talk about the workflow. As I've mentioned, we are using multiple tools and every tool has their pros and cons. We have to start with the research. I think Perplexity and Gemini are the best options here. On the next step, we want to collect everything. I prefer Affine over Notion. Why? We will see later. Then we have to consolidate. And I think for this step, Notebook LM is the best option here. But also, Notebook LM can be our personal knowledge base. And on the last step, we are using our project that we just built with our pattern here. As I've already mentioned, I recommend Claude, but feel free also to use GPT for this step. So, in summary, before we start here, what we need to do first is create a pattern. We create our first project. Then we have to improve. And that's a cycle. It's like a triangle. We move from one end to the other. The pattern is not constant. We develop it over time. We create, we improve, we move to the pattern and develop that again. We create and we improve and so on. It's a cycle. And this is very important. Now, of course, on this channel, we are talking a lot about automation. But for this use case, I would not recommend automating it because I believe it needs to be messy to be good. AI can help us with the research, but we are the one choosing what is actually interesting and what are the stories we want to tell. Okay, for our example, we would like to talk about this specific topic here. Only chatter. For those who don't know, in the Philippines, there is actually a whole industry that work for OnlyFans creators. Those people are chatting in the name for those creators. Now, that has been covered on different media types, but I believe there is still potential here. We can run a deep research. Here inside, we can just enable deep research. So we go to Perplexity and ask the same question. We could ask GPT with deep research here and ask the same thing. And of course, also can ask Claude here. Claude has definitely the most sources, as we can see here, almost 477 sources. It literally goes into the deepest web. But for me, the best job is actually done by Perplexity and Gemini. Gemini because of the video capabilities, and Perplexity because we don't always need deep research. If we just have simple, small question, it finds resources faster than those other models. But here is already the first problem. If we look at those documents and scroll, they are massive and all over the place. So we can go to Gemini and read a lot, and that consumes a lot of time. But what I found to be the best method here is actually skip all the unimportant parts here and really focus only on the headlines first to understand the big picture and work on the package first. I will explain what I mean with the package, but the problem here is to find the most interesting points. If we are using everything, we don't have a specific story. It's too much information and not interesting enough. It's great for having an overview, but we have to identify the specific story. And this is how I would do it. In order to speed up our research part, we have to understand first titles and thumbnails. If you look at those two channels, it's pretty obvious how the structure is. We don't need to ask LLM because it's quite clear. We have the artist, and in terms of the title, it's also a very straightforward pattern. This pattern applies to all those biography channels or subject first channels. It's basically always the same pattern. Our artist or our celebrity, and we could break it down this way. We have artist with the artist name plus X, or in some cases just X. That depends on the channel itself. Now, when we look at a channel like Fern, it's not that easy to spot. It's a little bit harder, but of course doable. And we can always ask AI to break down those patterns for us. On Fern, for example, we have the how X did Y method here for basically a lot of their titles. How meth is killing Europe. Okay. Now we can, of course, go deeper, but let's just move on here for now. In Neo, we have this pattern, which you can take a screenshot or study yourself. And it's always great to do this because that will allow you to speed up your process really a lot. Once you understand the title, the thumbnail, and the hook, you can basically do quick decisions in your head. Before I explain what I mean, let's figure out why this thumbnail here is working. Why is this thumbnail working? On this thumbnail, we don't have any controversy, but we can see Harvard and footballer. That's a contrast. That makes us ask, what is going on here? I want to know more, because the pairing doesn't make sense. Now, the hook, the title, the thumbnail, they all play together here. Now take your time and read this hook here. Let's study the first frame. You can see we have here Harvard. This is on frame 1. Basically, the very first thing we see is Harvard. And on the hook, the very first sentence we hear is Harvard doesn't usually study footballers. We can see here on second 5, we have the second image here of Thomas Müller. Now the package is basically a combination of the title, the thumbnail, and the hook. So those 3 combined are creating the package. As we can see here, they used an element in the thumbnail. We have Harvard and we have footballer. Now, on the hook, of course, we are starting with those 2 statements. We are basically covering our title here. Now, the next thing, and this is very important, now what follows after is this sequence here, where we explain the entire story in a nutshell. Why someone should watch this here. So he's not as fast as Mbappé, he has no dribblings as Messi, and he has not the body as Ronaldo, but yet he won more than almost anyone. Now this is what we have to look for. Now we can read all the suggestions, but we have to make a decision. What could be the best package here? After reading some of those suggestions, I believe this here sounds very interesting. The sales funnel for love. We can think about the hook, or use this as a starting point. We have to define a starting point because we have all those information, have to understand the package. Can we create a thumbnail, a title, and a hook out of it? And what are the things that we are interested in? Now we can of course chat here and ask specific questions. For this step, I really prefer chatting just with Perplexity. So we can take this whole segment here because this was actually coming from GPT. First, we have here already what we want to tell. And now I would just paste in our pattern. So this is the pattern that Claude gave us before. And I would ask now Perplexity to help me to find any relevant information about this subtopic. I could run a deep research, but I would prefer the normal mode because this is way faster and provides additional questions after we have asked it. Okay, great. And here we can see already it provides us with resources, but also we can start to dig deeper. This is fantastic. And what I like about Perplexity is that it can provide us with the next steps. So we can now just click and continue the research. We can create a project here inside. We can create a space, but we will not use it this time. Now, all we need to do is gather all the resources that we need. Now, I would use something like Affine because it combines basically a visual board, but at the same time, it allows us also to work on documents. So it's a combination between Miro and Notion, which of course is absolutely fantastic because now we can not only draw, we can not only visualize it, but also work on documents. For example, I have included the pattern here. We can then of course iterate and ask Claude again to write an outline for us based on all the information we found. This board can be messy. It should be messy. Dump in everything inside and then sort, because that's something AI is great at research, but you have to filter. Your job is basically to make decisions. You have to direct the AI because while it saves you a lot of time, it can also fill in too much in your bucket. Your job is really to be the gatekeeper. You have to be the director here. Now, all we need to do is compare the left side here with the right side. We compare our pattern, and that we have basically discussed with the AI helper. So here we can see this was the topic we wanted to dig deeper, and the AI was already helping us with the outline. This step is very important because we have to make sure the pattern we actually created in the beginning does make sense. Now, we have to validate this by understanding the outline, and either we have to improve the pattern or the outline, but this already helps us to develop everything further. Now, we have to read every section here and make sure that what we write on the left side is validated on the right side. The more we do that, the better. In the beginning, this is an extra step we have to do. But when we think long term, this really helps us to save time later on. Okay, let's recap what we have so far. We have started the research, but it's not over yet. It's still in progress. We started to collect, and now we have to use Notebook LM. Again, the research part is not over, even if we are at this step here. It might not be over, even if we are at the last step. It's not like a linear process. We have to move back and forth. We have to make decisions on every step. We might go back and start all over again. We want to make this until we are satisfied. But we have to move forward here. Let's move now to the step and how and why we should use Notebook LM. So inside Notebook LM, we can create a new notebook. It's like a project. We can integrate YouTube links, but to have the best experience, I would always provide documents. We are doing the same thing as before. So we are uploading documents. Now we upload documents, and those are just 4 documents. But we can really give it much more documents here. And this is perfect because we can use this for every step as our assistant for the editing step. Now let's ask Notebook LM to give us the most relevant parts of all those interviews. What I would do is give it a summary of our outline here. It doesn't need to be long, and we don't need all the other context. We are most interested in relevant parts from the interviews. Now keep in mind, those interviews not only helps us to basically to tell a documentary with more substance, but also it will allow the editor to have an easier life because of course now we can just use interviews parts and snippets here and we will have a complete package. If we don't have own interviews, for example on artists, it's very simple to find existing interviews, dump them all inside and iterate on the best and most important parts. Notebook LM is really doing a fantastic job here. It's sorted in terms of like where the resource is coming from, but if we are digging deep here, we can see also that it includes the time, which of course makes the editing process so much simpler. Because we have all those references, while it's not a finished script, we can take this and sort out everything we need to build the entire full script. Personally, I would sort everything out which is not important. Now, of course, we can let Claude do it for us, but the more context we feed Claude, the less good the outcome will be. I would read all the relevant parts here and basically copy that into our document. So I'm speeding up the process here. Usually your board would be more messy. You can build frames or sections here. So let's just say you found those interview snippets here, which AI can help us find. We would dump them and it would look something like this. And we can build sections that we can then move around as an entire section. Now going back to the interview snippets, we try to sort out things we don't need. This is important. I'm not doing it live now, but let's assume I would do it. Let's just clean up the things we don't need. Let's say we are done. We have completed our job and we have collected, we have iterated everything with Notebook LM. Those 3 steps here takes the most time. This is where you spend the most time iterating and collecting. And this step here can be done very quick because your project is doing actually already a great job. Now it's just all about fine-tuning. So let's move to Claude. So inside Claude, we have our first project. Now we can feed it. This is something we can already start to iterate. If there is something we want to change, we can change it here. We can upload or delete the file and upload a refresh timeline here. I would keep all the other reference because that's still relevant for this first step here. And maybe you want to keep those reference on your first project or on your second project. For the instruction, we will leave that as well. Now I run this project here already. So I was just saying on one document, you have the best voiceover moments and on the other, a bullet point list. So the bullet point is that what we've seen before in Affine. This is the timeline, the structure we basically want to tell here, okay? This is not refined. I'm just using the iteration that AI gave me without any further cleaning and filtering. So I'm not expecting the best results here. On the other side, this is what Notebook LM gave me. So I've basically put the context here of the interviews. Again, this is something that can take longer, and it should take longer. You should include more relevant interviews here. But to be honest, when it comes to writing the script, what I found actually is like when you have configured your instructions, you do not need to be super specific with your voiceover here. A bullet outline, it can already create a very good outcome. I wasn't specifying anything. I didn't wrote like, give me a clean voiceover, because that's all from the system prompt here. And this is basically what we have, a clean voiceover. So now we can read the clean voiceover here. Just reading it, it already looks great. The next thing I would do is take those transcripts here and give it Perplexity to really fact check everything. Because sometimes we think the AI is like using correct numbers, but in a lot of cases, it's not true. Like a lot of those numbers are not backed with evidence. So what I would do is take the entire transcript and ask another AI model like Perplexity to check every single fact. Now, if we did this before, then we don't have to worry too much, but we always have to check the sources, because again, like AI is writing sometimes things that are absolutely not true. And this is very, very important, that we are not betting that the AI here is doing everything correct. I would go to Affine here, paste in the first draft, and take the time and read this. Instead of like going and chatting back and forth, stick with this one document. We can also ask the AI to take out all the B-roll. That's fine. We can take out the graphics. But for some, this is helpful, for others not. I would write down every single thing I believe could be improved. I would go over this document and either put notes. So I could use sticky notes. I could create here tiny notes. What are the things that are missing? I can place them here, my timeline. Again, the more visuals we have, the easier for us to understand how it will look. Maybe this takes more time, and it's kind of like already a pre-editing step. But believe me, once you are starting to edit, you will be super thankful if you do this here. Also, your editor will be super thankful, because now it just focuses on one section, goes down here, and every reference will be inside. So let's say we are not happy with the hook. We can, of course, store our comments here and go read all the details before we are moving on and asking Claude, or maybe research again here. So add a next comment and so on. This takes some time, but the better we do step 1, 2, and 3. If we are too lazy for step 1, 2, and 3, this part here will take longer. This is also the power of having something like Notebook LM. We can go back to Notebook LM. Maybe we are not happy with the hook and want to have snippets of those interview moments. So let's ask, for example, to give me the best parts I could use for my hook. This actually already sounds quite good here. It's a 24 hours operation. Soon as UK market goes to sleep, the US market now gets active. We can infuse voiceover with snippets to make it even more interesting here. Now again, this was not a tutorial about storytelling. It's basically understanding the pattern, create and use AI in the best possible way, but don't stop here. Improve and create a cycle, because every iteration will make your whole system more effective.